You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese. How are you feeling today, sir?
I am doing wonderful. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. You're looking kind of spiffy today. You got a hot date later?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, I respect it, man. I respect it.
Yeah. Going to dinner afterwards.
Are we going somewhere fancy?
No, probably a Mexican restaurant or something.
Oh, I think the one thing I like about Florida is that there's a lot of Spanish food out here.
Oh yeah.
But one thing I do hate about Florida is that there's nothing but mosquitoes out here at night. Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they've been swarming me, kind of just like the Eagles defense swarmed Jared Goff against the Lions.
Great transition. Yes.
There it is. Look at that. Eagles defeated the Lions 16-9, and despite them beating one of the better offenses in the league, despite the defense showing out, the topic of conversation happens to be Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and everything bad about the offense. But before we get into the offense, because I'm pretty sure we'll spend a good chunk of the podcast on that, let's talk about the defense. Going into the season, it felt like they lost a lot of pieces. They were losing main guys: Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Darius Slay. Cornerback 2 was an issue for majority of the season, and then Howie trades for Jalen Phillips and Michael Carter, and out of nowhere, this defense is very, very potent. It's very unique. How do you feel this defense? I mean, I guess the question is, how do you think they made such a huge leap in such a small amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, defensively, this was a game where everything just fit for them. Jalen Phillips secured his first sack as an Eagle. He's been dominant since coming over here. 11 tackles, a sack, a fumble recovery, 12 pressures. And quite honestly, you asked how it happens. That type of midseason addition and firepower is just unheard of. You just don't add something like that. And you throw that into the mix with somebody like Zach Bond, who paced the defense with 7 tackles. And he's just so good and consistent that at this point, I think we all just overlook it or expect it. Like you don't even pay him attention anymore. We're all just watching Jalen Phillips. We're watching Jalen Carter, who's back to playing like he did in 2024. And, in my opinion, the defense is just completely predicated on what he does. When he's crashing the interior, everybody else looks better. The corners look better because it's less time that they're having to run with the receiver. The edge rushers look better because the quarterback can't step up in the pocket, so they get to him from the side. I mean, he just makes everything go. And like you mentioned, with CB2, we all knew what we had in Quinyon Mitchell, but my goodness, I don't know if we all knew that he was this good. I mean, he's putting on a clinic. He's top 4 or 5 corner in the league. I mean, he's playing all pro. I mean, he has been amazing. And then you throw in Adoree Jackson, who probably had the toughest assignment on the night. He had the heaviest workload on Amon St. Brown, which is just crazy. He had 11 matchups and just allowed 1 catch for 8 yards. I mean, that's really impressive stuff from a guy who in training camp basically had to survive his way with Vic Fangio to get on the field. He said, this guy's been around the league. Tennessee didn't keep him. New York didn't keep him. You could tell it didn't seem like, that he was his favorite guy. But I think they found, the opposite corner for the rest of this season. They were desirous of it being Kelee Ringo. I'm quite sure of that. He's a draft pick, cheaper, affordable, controllable, but Adoree's run away with it, and he's looked really good. And you mentioned like the nickel. He had a tough matchup as well. He went up against Amon, and he went up against Jameson, and going up against Jameson's no feat for anybody. I mean, he brings Deshaun Jackson type speed to the field. So everything just is working right now for the defense, and like you mentioned, they'll talk about the offense, but I don't know that the offense, it struggles. It's ugly. It's predictable. It's not fun, but it might not matter because if the defense plays like this and the offense can just control the clock and score 17 to 20 points a week, they might be, hoisting their second Lombardi
And
in as many years.
that seems to be the trade-off, right? Like if the offense can control the controllables and allow the defense to just do what they're doing, then this team could really go deep and possibly repeat. To kind of go back to the defense a little bit and put a spotlight on them. So I looked up the PFF stats. From week 1 to 9, their overall grade was 71.3. That was 10th in the league. Weeks 10 to 11, an overall grade of 80.9. They're 3rd in the league. Positive run defense grade went from 49.7%, 13th in the league. And in the last 2 weeks, they're actually number 1 in the league, 63.6%. You mentioned Jalen Carter. We mentioned Jaden Phillips, but I feel like the guy that everybody needs to talk about is Jordan Davis. Slimmed down over the offseason, has looked magnificent. He looked great even when Jalen Carter was out against the Cowboys. He's getting pressure he's getting pressure. He's getting to the quarterback. He was swatting balls left and right against the Lions. And it seems like we finally have that duo once again. And it's such an integral part of what Vic Fangio is doing, where it's kind of like, as long as the defensive line can control the game, the cornerbacks may be living the life out there.
Yeah, the 2 games Jalen Carter was out, Jordan Davis wasn't quite as effective. He's, I agree with you. He's great. What did they combine for 5 batted passes against the Lions?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, and what he said, how did they do that? He said, "We'll starts off being 6'6", which was a pretty funny line. But he thrives working next to Jalen Carter. Almost anybody would, but he really does. They play well off each other, and when he has to be the guy and they have to go to their third DT, they were searching. Ty Robinson wasn't the guy, and who was the other one they had? Brian Young. Brian Young.
Byron.
They struggled with that, and then you throw in Moro Ajomo, who, we joked about it on the show, pre-show last week, but I end up agreeing. I think Jalen Phillips and Moro Ajomo over Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. I mean, not to mention the $175 million in contracts they didn't pay out to keep these 2 guys. But I mean, it's unbelievable. But yeah, Jordan Davis, you mentioned he got into great shape and all, and he's been playing good football. And it always happens at an opportunistic time for these players. They always know when to do that right before contracts coming up.
Yeah, and it's coming in due time. I'm fearful. We talk about this all the time about the upcoming offseason, but I feel like if you're Howie Roseman, there's no way that you let Jalen Phillips or Jordan Davis leave the NovaCare complex. Like, those are 2 key parts that you cannot enter next season without. You praised Adoree Jackson, which I do have to admit that he did a stellar job. He did everything that was expected of him, and he's earned that CB2 role. Another player that's been kind of quiet, but that's actually progressed so well since week 1 is Andrew Makuba. He was missing tackles early on, but now it seems like he's such a reliable safety back there. Even Reed Blankenship is actually having a hell of a year. If you listen to the broadcast, you would hear how they were criticizing Blankenship for being so far out, but giving him credit for jumping into the gap so quickly. And it seems like from top to bottom, like Vic Fangio has these guys humming.
Yeah, they picked the best athletes. I mean, I thought Makuba during the draft process was the best fit for the Eagles as far as just talent and style of play. Mm-hmm. And you kind of saw it in the preseason, but that doesn't mean a lot. But he was very exciting in the preseason. Then he kind of struggled when the season actually turned to the real thing. But yeah, he's been fantastic, the past few weeks. And like you mentioned, Fangio praised him today, saying, he's not a rookie anymore. This is an experienced player now. He was a rookie at the beginning of the season, but this guy is seeing everything in front of him. And Reed's always been solid, but I agree, he's kind of took a step up this year as well. And he's another guy, like I think he's a free agent at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're going to have their hands full with that. One thing I think they have going for them as far as the Georgia players go is that a lot of them have the same mentality that Devontae Smith did. They have the same mentality that Jalen Hurts did. Their overall goal isn't to be the highest paid player in the league. They want to stay with their brothers who they've been with the past 6-7 years. since they were in college. You know, they want to get money and they want a fair contract, but I don't think they're the types of guys who want to break the bank. So they're not going to be able to keep everybody, but I bet they end up keeping more of them than most expect.
And I'm happy you said that because I feel like that also somehow, some way, it applies to Jalen Phillips. Because if you hear Jordan Davis and Jalen Phillips speak about each other, they gush about each other. Like they've already adopted him into the brotherhood, and he loves it here. He's been saying that since the get. Jordan Davis was praising Jalen Phillips for being, so open-minded to the culture, so open-minded to the locker room, and just coming into it and just being a part of it. And this is, I hate to say this, but I wish the offense was like this, right? Like I wish they loved each other again like this. Like the defense, you can see that they all play for each other. They all want each other to succeed. The offense this season is not that, and we can kind of segue to them. Coming off a year where Saquon Barkley rushed for 2,000 yards, where the guys were in sync, chemistry was high. The offense, the key part of it, and I give you kudos for this because you've been saying this from the beginning of the season. The key part of last year was that they had a very healthy offensive line. This year, you have Lane Johnson missing the next 4 to 6 weeks. Cam Jurgens came back, but he was out in the game. Landon Dickinson missed the first. He didn't miss the games, but he was in and out, kind of like Lane Johnson was. Yeah. Tyler Steen has been quietly great. Jordan Mailata is starting to find his groove again. But this offense, there's a huge disconnect. And the public outlook is that it's because A.J. Brown is speaking out. And I think you and I and Corey have mentioned this before in the podcast. I'm okay with what A.J. Brown is saying because A.J. Brown is saying things that we're all saying on Twitter. We're all saying to our friends. We're all saying to our relatives, whoever we talk football with. You're saying the same thing. This offense sucks. They don't do anything special. They're not creative anymore. They're very predictable. And yes, they were very predictable last season, but they were good at it. They had an edge to them. They had the will to be good. This year, it seems like there's so much melting underneath the surface that they're all fighting just to stay afloat.
Yeah. I mean, as far as A.J. Brown goes, a lot of people think, he's the leak or whoever's confidant or the deep throat like it's 1970s Watergate. He's none of those things, man. I mean, you've seen what he wanted to say. He said it. He's posted it. He's discussed it. He's offered to apologize, which Lurie reportedly said was unnecessary, which is a little eye-opening, But he has stated over and over, all he wants to do is help the offense move the ball and help the team win games. He has not called out Jalen Hurts. In fact, he's done the opposite. He defended him, especially in regards to people saying, like showing plays online that they just basically don't understand what they're looking at. And, him standing up for him saying, they're incorrectly judging them. To get back to your point about the cohesiveness of the offense and all, I don't know that they don't love each other. Like the games I've been in the locker room this year, and I can say this especially for the offensive line, they're tight. They're extremely tight. They are happy for one another when they do good. They praise one another. That game that Brett Toth came in, I guess it was maybe it wasn't the Rams game. Maybe it was the Rams game where after a really tough week he gave up. He finally got a week of practice and he came in at center and he played his rear end off in that game, man. And those guys were over there hugging them. And when Fred Johnson had to come in for Lane, they're over there hugging him. They're a very close, unit. And you mentioned Mailata and how he's kind of turned it around here lately. And I agree. I mean, he had one of his best games, if not the best game of the season, Monday night. Or Sunday night, whatever night. He didn't allow a single pressure on all 31 of his pass blocking snaps. And he was going against Aiden Hutchinson and Alam McNeil. I mean, that's a flawless sheet against two really, really good, players. So the problem comes down to the frustration of the players that are, your skill position players. Saquon Barkley is frustrated too. He wants to contribute. He wants to do better. He might not be vocalizing it as much, but he doesn't like not, thriving in this system. Devontae Smith, quiet, laid-back guy. He wants to do better. And every time AJ has said anything, he's backed him up. He's frustrated too. I mean, anybody who watched like the video films, you heard Devontae say after he scored his touchdown, just throw the effing ball against, the Green Bay game. I mean, these, I don't know that they don't have the same feelings as a defense, but when things aren't going as well and people are more frustrated, it just looks worse.
And I mean, speaking to the frustration, right? We talked about all the playmakers around QB1, and recently there was a report right after the game. Derek Gunn, a very respected reporter, Eagles insider, mentioned how people within the organization are growing frustrated with Jalen for being Jalen, pretty much, for being who he is, uncompromising, and they're frustrated with how he's kind of, I don't want to say going rogue, but he's handling the offense in his own way as opposed to how the coaches want him to handle it. This sounds oddly familiar and is oddly concerning because we dealt with this with Carson Wentz. Do you
Yeah.
think this is an issue or a non-issue with Jalen right now?
I don't think I do think it's a little issue. I don't think it's as big an issue as everybody's making it out to be. I think Jalen Hurts has been honest about what he brings to the table from the very beginning. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year when they kind of struggled out the gate and before all the bells and whistles of a Super Bowl season took over everyone's memory. But he said something that this offense might not be how you want it, but it's going to be how I want it, and it's going to win.
Mhm.
And I remember him saying that. That's paraphrasing, but it was very close, very
Very
close to
close. I
that.
have the quote right here. So you're
Yeah.
very close.
And I sent out something earlier today about them talking about their brand of football the Eagles play. A lot of people are saying the offense, the way they're playing isn't sustainable. It's a conservative, turnover and risk averse style of football. But I would counter with this that being a conservative, turnover, risk averse style of football has been a staple since Sirianni arrived. Jalen Hurts spoke on it yesterday. He went through. That's a reason that some games are a little closer than they should be, because we're not going to, take those shots, put the ball in harm's way and risk. But to defend the Eagles' approach here, when people say it's not sustainable, it's been pretty sustainable. They're 40-2 when winning the turnover battle under Nick Sirianni. 40-2. So you might not like it, but the powers that be aren't likely to change their mind or approach. So because they're winning over 90% of their games. So you're likely to continue to see bland, basic routes, simplified max protection packages. They also hit on plays over 20 yards almost more than anybody else in the league too. So you will see some of those too. A lot of people will say it's because they're in third and long so often. Maybe so. I don't know. but they do hit them. So, they don't care if it makes the game closer because they believe they'll win this way. Just like we were talking last week about them, going for it, not punting the ball and going for that touchdown down the sideline with A.J. Brown. And I said, they spend a lot of money on their analytic team. And analytics say if you make that play, it's a 100% win. If you don't make it, it's a 70% win. Well, the analytics did the same thing this week. They go for the tush push twice. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Analytics say you hit one of them, 100% chance of winning. If you don't, you still got a 60-some% chance of winning. So they're going to play that every time. They're in the business of winning football games, not appeasing their fans or even their star wide receiver.
And I completely get that. And I'm completely on that in agreement with that. I think my only thing with Jalen is that Jalen could do a better job of making this. I don't want to say make it seem, but the offense has to find that camaraderie again. Like last year, they rode for each other. Everybody was excited for Saquon. Everybody was excited for AJ. You heard Saquon saying AJ Brown is so effing good at football. You heard AJ and Devontae on the sideline praising Saquon and giving him hell because he didn't, break for a touchdown on a play. Like it was there. And you would think after being Super Bowl champions, like it should have progressed in a better direction than it is, because that chemistry should have carried over to this season. Yes, I don't doubt that they're tired. I don't doubt that there's a little bit of Super Bowl hangover, but what I do believe is that there's something more present that's really pulling this offense away from each other. I've tried my best not to point fingers at Nick Sirianni all year, because I feel like he deserves a little bit more credit because of how everything went from Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore and then the Super Bowl. But this offense, on paper, the routes, the play calls, what we're seeing the wide receivers do, this feels exactly like that two and five Eagles team when Nick Sirianni was calling plays. This feels exactly like that Eagles team that when Brian Johnson was calling plays, and then at the end of the season, he took off the Scooby Doo mask, and Nick Sirianni pretty much admitted it was him calling plays. And it's right here. Like, this is happening all over again. We're seeing these verticals, these curls. We're not seeing much over the middle of the field, which I know Jalen's not a fan of, but still at times with a guy like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, you can go deep in the middle of the field. We're just not seeing we're not seeing an NFL offense on the field at all. It just feels like we're seeing kind of high school football. And do you think it's proper that a lot more of the spotlight needs to be shined on Nick Sirianni for having this inconsistent consistency when he promotes his own guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's his scheme. I mean, the scheme hasn't changed in 4 years for the most part. I mean, little wrinkles here and there. They've been better at it than a lot of other teams because they have better athletes doing it. I mean, if I know what Saquon Barkley is going to do on a football field would matter very little in my ability to be able to make a tackle on him because I'm just not as gifted. And that's just the way it goes down. And it's not just, the routes, like you said, it's also just the formations and stuff, which are just, part of his foundation, like these 3 tight end sets and Grant
Yeah.
Calcaterra out on the field constantly in run blocking. And this is not a shot at Grant Calcaterra. It's not his fault. It's not his game. He came into the league as, a pass catching tight end. And that's why he ranks 85th out of 88 in run blocking grades.
Does it blow your mind that they don't use Cameron Latu at all?
It does. Yeah. It does. And and it's hard to understand why they don't, but that's why a lot of times when everybody puts it on Kevin Patullo, well, it's he has say in the offense, but at the end of the day, it's Nick. I mean, he controls all this, up to and including the issues that we're talking about. He's the CEO, head coach. He doesn't call the plays. His job is to keep, the vibes going good. Well, the vibes haven't been going good. So, that's when you start getting questioned as a head coach. That's when those things happen. And you mentioned Derek Gunn, and I don't have very much insight. I love looking on X and seeing people like, this is my take. I don't know anything. I've never been in the locker room, but this is my take. As soon as I see that, I'm tuning out. But a lot of people just go on and read that mess. But what I can say is Derek Gunn is a highly respected, journalist. He's beloved by many in that organization to this day. If he was constantly wrong and slandering players without merit, so many of them wouldn't gravitate towards him. I mean, first and foremost, nobody'd be talking to him. So why is he close with so many players if he's misreporting what they're saying and their actions? And if you drive by his house, which is the same neighborhood as DJ Jazzy Jeff, by the way, he's in his backyard cooking on the grill. And at times you'll see players back there eating dinner with him. I mean, this isn't an isolated event. He's friendly with a lot of guys. So to try to just act like, what he's saying has no merit, I don't know about that. Could the person who's saying it to him be exaggerating it? Of course, he wouldn't know. I mean, he's just going by what he's being told, and he's just saying what he's being told. Is it for clicks? Is it for this or that? I don't know. There's always going to be a story. As soon as everybody moved off AJ, now we're on Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's just the way things are going to go because there's nothing else to talk about. They've been winning games. You can't keep bashing the same, concepts that they're doing over and over and over, except to just say it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. But they could care less. They don't agree. And I think, the answer to your question, just to put it in short form, is they run the same stuff because it's been working. And until it doesn't, they're not going to change. And they don't care if they only win by 3, 6, 9, 12. They don't care. All they want to do is just win the game. And if they think playing this way and playing bully ball and keeping the ball away from the opposing offenses is going to win them another championship, that's what they're going to do.
Let's look at it from a 30,000-foot view. Well, I don't think it's that high. But let's look at it from Jeffrey Lurie's seat. You see, we both know that Jeffrey Lurie is very passionate about his quarterbacks putting up stats. That's something that he wants to have. That's something he wants to see. And that's something we've seen out of Jalen. Jalen puts up numbers. He's not a scrub by no means. I mean, the guy, in my opinion, if he kind of corrects his course, he could be, probably the best QB in franchise history at the end of his career. But if you're Jeffrey Lurie and you want your offense to be that prototype offense in the NFL, how do you view what's going on? I mean, how do you view the architect of all this, Nick Sirianni, and his lack of ability to adjust? And I think Saquon even said that, I wish there was more in-game adjustments, which it speaks volumes because a lot of people criticize Vic Fangio for that in the beginning, but Fangio now is the quickest to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
But Nick in the offense, they don't adjust. They do on 3rd and 10. It's Will Shipley or Tank Bigsby or even back then A.J. Dillon. It's never Saquon. We don't see passes on 3rd and 10. We don't see any productivity on the offense. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, how are you viewing your offense right now? How are you viewing your product on the field?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's extremely desirous of the shot plays, putting up a lot of yards on offense, through the air. It's exciting. It's what he wanted. It's the type of offense he wanted. He kind of compromised with the Nick Sirianni hire because you kind of knew what you were getting with that, which wasn't exactly what he wanted. And some of it was
He wants
also
Kyle Shanahan. We could say that.
yeah. And some of it was him kind of, playing to the strengths of Jalen Hurts as well. You have a mobile quarterback who can, assist in the run game. He's almost a cheat code, which hasn't kind of been the way it's gone this season because he just hasn't dialed up runs like that for himself. So defenses aren't buying those, handoffs to Saquon and him pulling it back, where it used to, when the edge crashed towards Saquon, he put it back in his chest and ran 5, 6, 7 yards up the middle. Those plays aren't happening, and that has hurt Saquon. But to your answer about the offense, I mean, if 2024 didn't happen and he didn't win a Super Bowl, he was likely gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't even think he would have been here. They did not like his direction after 2023. Winning wasn't, winning 10 games out of the first 11 or whatever they did, went 10-1, and what wasn't good enough. It isn't what they wanted. They want an exciting product. They want to be the talk of the league. They want to be in the highlights. Mm-hmm. He wants all of that attention. So I don't think he likes the offense at all. Last year they got away with it because the explosive plays in the highlight reels was Saquon Barkley. Correct. And what they do as soon as the season ended? Ripped up that contract, gave him a new one. And you mentioned earlier about some people might not like the way things have gone. Some people might not like that. He gets more money instantly his first year here. There's a lot of guys who've grinded it out on that offense and may have not been a fan of that, without knowing a lot of the intricacies of that. It's very difficult to, speculate. But yeah, he definitely does not like this brand of football that they're playing probably any more than the fans do. But if they keep winning and if they win another Super Bowl, they're obviously going to keep riding with Sirianni because it's very difficult to change. But as soon as he fails, I mean, he'd have probably 1 year of equity before he's gone.
So he would have to tank this year as well as next year.
Probably.
Which in his case could be very easy, but I'm not going to go there.
And maybe it wouldn't take 2 years. I mean, after they gave him, the 1 year, that one time they gave him an extra year, maybe they wouldn't again. I mean, Doug Peterson, what was he going? 2 seasons after a Super Bowl. I mean, they don't care to do it. I mean, and in fact, I think they believe it brings fresh ideas and things to the organization. I mean, they're always looking for that.
Yeah, I mean, when they fired Doug, they wanted an offense that had motion in it, that had these creative things. And Nick Sirianni got lucky because Shane Steichen was around. He got lucky because Kellen Moore came to town. But it's no secret, the moment that these guys leave, then we're stuck with the blueprint that Nick Sirianni has brought to the table, that Kevin Patullo is struggling to manufacture anything into because, and this is no disrespect to Kevin Patullo, but he's not a Kellen Moore. He's not a Shane Steichen. He's not a Frank Wright. These guys are good at being offensive coordinators and taking, what's a foundation and being creative with it. And we're not seeing that out of Patullo. Now, I'm not going to go on a limb saying Sirianni's calling plays. I'm not going to go that far. I think Patullo has the full grip and trust of Sirianni. The issue I hand is the playbook's not working. So where do you dig into to make things happen? And the team is 8-2. Number 1 seed in the NFC. They've beaten great teams. They've beaten the new football sweetheart of the Los Angeles Rams. They're doing what they need to do. But how far? I mean, how long of a leash does Sirianni have from now to the end of the season to actually make your boss happy and make him feel his opinion is valued on the field?
Yeah, they're winning by talent. I mean, the MVP is Howie Roseman. I mean, quite frankly, they're winning. They're winning on talent. And if this defense was 20th ranked defense instead of a top 3 ranked defense, this would be a very different conversation. The offense is not doing enough to win football games if they didn't have a dominant defense. They're playing to their strength. They know that they can do the things they're doing because they're relying on a great defense. Most teams that win do have good defenses, but they're buying time because of that defense. And who knows, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll turn into like last year and things will start clicking. They have the talent where it would not be surprising if they turned the page and suddenly Jalen's averaging 250 plus yards passing again. AJ's, having 80, 90-yard receiving averages. It's there. It's happened. We've seen it, the prior few years. It's right there. But again, I go to the one thing that, the skill positions can't control, and that's the offensive line. And they just keep fighting through so many issues with that. And we mentioned it on a podcast a few weeks back. I mean, when Saquon Barkley is averaging less than 1 yard before contact, when he averaged 3.8 before contact, the past couple of seasons, that's a problem. I mean, and nobody's falling for any of their, play actions or anything else. No, it just doesn't work when the offensive line isn't, being dominant. So almost every week you could go back to that same well due to injuries and a lack of cohesion. The matchup of the week every week is the offensive line versus the defensive line. And everything the Eagles offense do is predicated on their ability to run the ball.
Mm-hmm. It's if you look at the Eagles ranks right now, total offense to 25th in the NFL, passing offense 28th in the NFL, third down conversion they're reportedly the 29th in the NFL. They're 17th in rushing yards per game, averaging around 115 yards per game. This offense is struggling mightily. I have no idea what the fix could be at this rate. I mean, the only thing I could think is going outlandish and bringing in a Frank Wright to kind of be a councilman, a counselor for Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni. But in your
The only
opinion,
thing that can fix it is running. I mean, if they don't start running the ball, I mean,
Correct.
Sirianni wouldn't be here right now if Howie Roseman didn't get Saquon Barkley last season. Let's face it. That changed everything. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And if
Jalen Hurts said it.
if Saquon's not getting 100 yards a game, they're in big trouble. I mean, because nothing else is working, and it hasn't worked for a while. I mean, people remember last season fondly because of 2 games, because of the Commanders and the Chiefs. But there was a lot of frustration throughout that season. I mean, I think Jalen only averaged 180 passing yards a game last year. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, big numbers. I believe it was 183 or something like that. And then they flipped the script in, the playoffs in those 2 games. But even the Rams game, I don't remember what he threw for, but it won a lot. 150 versus Green Bay, 100.
That was the Saquon game in the snow.
Yeah, 150 something during Green Bay, 150 something during the Rams, and then it stepped up to maybe 250 and 250 or whatever in the last 2 games, and that's what everybody remembers, the dagger and all the all those things. But yeah, if it wasn't for the run game last season, they would have never been where they're at. I mean, hell, even Jalen Hurts went up to him and said, "This is you." If you remember at the end of the game, this is you. I mean, you were the piece we were missing. And you talked earlier about things that rub people the wrong way. Well, we all saw that. So did every other person on that team. I mean, you never know what rubs people the wrong way.
And if you're Jalen Hurts, how do you view that? Where it's kind of like, that a guy like Saquon came in and was a final piece. A player like A.J. Brown came in and, helped you get to your first Super Bowl. Coordinators like Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore, they came in and helped you become a better player. Now in this part of his career, and I've talked to you about this plenty of times, I feel like Jalen's at a crossroad, right? It's either you start doing things the right way, which sometimes may not be your way. You got to kind of have an open mind. And it's either you start doing things that way or you stay in your own path and pray to God that somehow, some way, it just works. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work that way. So if you're Jalen Hurts, how do you view your current position? I mean, are you open-minded enough to say, hey, like, I gotta take a step back. I gotta, get my guys together. I remember back then where, it used to be a thing on bye weeks, wide receivers and running backs used to travel and hang out with their quarterback. It didn't sound like they that nowadays on this team, but how would you approach that if you're Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I do think he's at the part of his career where the great quarterbacks are leading at this point. They are the cohesion of the offensive unit. They are the people getting everybody together. They are the ones who are adapting to win. I mean, you see him do some things like you heard his agent say that, he didn't want to be the highest paid player because he wants to make sure there's enough money to pay everybody else. I mean, that's admirable. That's something that Tom Brady did that's very often overlooked. It's a reason why he was able to keep Gronk and all these people around with him everywhere he went, because he was willing to keep moving cash and pushing it down. And I think Jalen Hurts is very aware of that as well. But you're right, he's at the point where it shouldn't matter if they have a different offensive coordinator all the time anymore. This is his team, it's his offense. Like he said, it's going to be the way he wants it to be. When you put that onus on your shoulders, you have to start having the actions behind it.
I 1000% agree. And I do hope that how old is he? He's like 20, 24, 25 now?
Who, Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
I think he's like 27, actually. I think.
Really? Wow. Time is flown that much. Okay.
26 or 7, I think.
I do hope he has that moment where he kind of takes a step back and kind of looks at it like, I don't want to say he's letting his team down, but as the leader, as the guy who knows, hey, this playbook's not working, these calls are not working, I need to get my guys involved, and we all got to get together and make this happen. I know they meet every day, every week, whatever the case may be, in the film and things of that sort, but that doesn't mean that things are progressing. That doesn't mean things are going in the right direction at the end of the day.
Right, he needs to impose his will. Like, he's the one signed to a $250 million deal, not Nick Sirianni, not Kevin Patullo. It's him. I mean, so yeah, he needs to impose his will upon the offense and truly make it the way he wants it, like he said.
It's either you go to Tom Brady route or you go to Carson Wentz route. It's two very simple decisions to make right now.
And it's funny you mentioned him. Somebody texted me this weekend and said that Jalen Hurts is falling the same way Hurts did after he got married. So some about Eagles quarterbacks getting married just ruin them. Just, but you're right. I mean, he does need to take a probably a stronger stance. He's a quiet guy. He leads by example a lot of times. I mean, fans see all the rah-rah stuff, on the videos, for the kickoff or whatever, but that's really not him in the locker room and everything else. I mean, I know that as well. So yeah, maybe it is time that he has to take on a little larger role, and it's something that comes with maturity and time and trust, and and that's not to say he won't evolve into that, because I love Jalen Hurts. I think he's a great fit, and I want everything to work. I'm definitely never hating on the guy. I've defended him for 5 years since he got here. I've been one of his staunch defenders from the beginning. I like his approach in a lot of ways, but there does come a point where you have to, impose your will more. And I think that point is probably now offensively.
I 1000% agree. And the point also has to be made this Sunday, because this Sunday they're going to face the Cowboys, who are, I don't want to say coming in red hot, but they look like they're putting together something. Defensively, they play the Raiders. I don't want to give them too much credit. I don't want to sound like a hater either, but defensively they added Quentin Williams. They added the linebacker, I think it was Logan Wilson, if I'm mistaken. So they look like a more well put together unit defensively. Offensively, George Pickens is he's everything we want AJ Brown to be right now, and we know AJ Brown can be that. And Dak Prescott is not playing risk-averse football.
No.
But so the Cowboys are going to come in slinging it. I mean, they're hosting the Eagles on Kelly Green week, but they're going to come out slinging it. They're going to come out throwing the ball and attacking his defense from whichever way they can. I'm pretty sure they're going to attack Adoree Jackson. But what's going to matter at the end of the day is, you mentioned this in the beginning of the podcast, is can the Eagles offense control the clock? Can they control time of possession? Which we mentioned early in the season, like that's key for them to get back to the Super Bowl. You have to control time of possession, and the only way you can do so is kind of like you mentioned before. You got to be successful in running the football.
Yeah, and they probably need to get Tank a little more involved. I mean, he's been an exciting change of shift guy. I mean, every time he gets
He's
the
quick.
ball, something exciting's about to happen. And yeah, Dallas is dangerous. It's not just that they beat the Raiders; it's also they're playing for a purpose now. One of their players passed away. They all came in there wearing a shirt. Motivation like that. I remember years ago the Eagles lost Jerome Brown. It's before a lot of people's time on here, but they dedicated the whole season to him. They were a mediocre offensive team that went all the way to the divisional championship game against the Cowboys because of playing for heart, playing for your brother, and and Dallas is doing a lot of that same stuff. We've already seen, CeeDee Lamb and Pickens earlier this year. Pickens had a really good game. Had CeeDee Lamb not had 4 drops or whatever, he was eating the Eagles defensive backs up. I mean, he had a good game. And you're right, Dak is not risk averse. And I don't know if I've said it on this podcast or not, but I can't remember who told me this. It may have been Kurt Warner. I can't remember, but they said that when your quarterback is throwing interceptions, it's a problem. But when your quarterback is not throwing any interceptions, that's a problem too, because it means they're just never taking any risks, like you said. And that part of being a quarterback is, going for it, slinging the ball. You're the guy who touches it 55 times a game. You got to put it in harm's way every now and again if you're going to, get the risk reward there. So, Dak has always been better at that. That's his game, than what the Eagles offense tries to do. So I do think this is a game that could be a lot closer than people think, and that the Eagles probably will have to push the ball a little harder down the field and take a little bit more risks than they've had the past couple weeks.
Defensively for the Eagles, what can you see being a huge must do against the Cowboys? Like, I know the obvious things can be, hey, you got to find a way to stop CeeDee Lamb, find a way to stop George Pickens. But after seeing this defense over the last couple of weeks, I feel like the only way to really shut down the Cowboys is you have to do exactly what you did to Jared Goff, exactly what you did to Jordan Love, and that's pressure the life out of Dak Prescott. Dak is a bit more better on the run than Jordan Love is, and obviously than Jared Goff is. But defensively, how can you see this team winning on what the defense needs to do?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They got to get in pressure. I mean, Dallas faced them without Jalen Carter last time due to the whole pregame incident. And if it wasn't for the rain delay, is that what it was? A weather delay, lightning, whatever the heck.
Yeah, the halftime weather. Yeah.
That changed the whole game. Nobody ever really scored again. Like, it was just, everything got funky after that. Nobody was in
the Eagles' offense never came back from that game.
No, and Dallas, like I said, they were a couple CeeDee Lamb drops away from not just winning the game, but maybe by a touchdown, 10 points or something. I mean, they were slinging the ball pretty well. But again, this is a different game with Jalen Carter in there and Jalen Phillips. So yeah, that's the key to it. You rattle them, you pressure them, you spy them. And, you have Zach Bond spy him. So when, he does his runs, you just crush him. I mean, that's how you beat him. And, when he has more time, CeeDee Lamb and Pickens will get open no matter who they're facing, whatever defensive back. You give them time, they're going to find a soft spot. So, yeah, that you nailed it. It's pressure. They have to get pressure, keep Dak contained, don't allow him to be mobile and move around and strike those, big plays that he does when he's on the move.
Now, offensively, you said it before, right? Time of possession, running the ball. This Dallas defense, Jerry Jones in his mind, and probably in Madden, wanted to build a defense that could stop the run. This Eagles team is not doing well in the run, but you mentioned as well, like Tank Bigsby should be involved more. How can you see this offense succeeding against the Dallas defense?
I think you might see a few more passes to Saquon too. I don't know how many he has this year. It's near 30. He's been using that role a lot, and maybe you'll see some ball control waves like that, some short passes to him. They got to get Dallas Goedert involved over the middle. it's getting into rhythm, which has been the problem. And that's, the play calling, the sequence, the cadence. It just hasn't been good. Even last week in the wind, they came out throwing the ball all the way down the field, and then they just abandoned it after that. If something doesn't work, like 2 weeks ago, it was the Jalen fumble inside the red zone. Last week, I don't remember what happened, but they were throwing the ball the whole, 4 or 5 of the first 6 plays were throws. And then they just abandon it. Something happens, they don't like it, and they kind of shy away from it again. And once you become predictable, you're going to have a very hard time, stacking points and stacking drives. And they've never been able to sustain the early downs, which is constantly putting them in 3rd and long, which is why they're 29th in the league in 3rd down conversions. That, and it seems like when they're in 3rd down, everything just goes to crap. Like the plays come in late, they break the huddle late. I mean, it's confusion, looking at the sidelines, false starts, just things that are very non-Eagle like, that just hadn't happened before. So, yeah, I think they need to do things to control the ball more, to just to try to sustain some early drives, because when they're not able to do that, the rest of the game just seems to go really poorly after that.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those games where the Eagles offense can try different things in this game, right? You can be a little bit more loose in this game, but the question is, will they? And you mentioned this a couple of times. I mean, like every time they take 3 steps forward, something happens and they take 20 steps backwards, and they go back to this weird conservative play where it's just like they're scared to play football, and it's not Eagles brand. It's not the brand of a champion either. Despite the fact that they want to forget that they won the Super Bowl, they are the defending champions. They're coming in week in, week out. They're getting everybody's best, which means you got to give your best to everybody as well. And then the fans deserve to see it. Jeffrey Lurie deserves to see it. We deserve to see it. And they have to show up at some point.
Yeah, it has to start with the play designs too. They have to integrate more into this. Like I said, they got to do something to get his rhythm going early and
Can I get some slants?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, crossing routes, slants. I mean, especially, I mean, you thought you would have saw it last week of how often the Lions play man coverage. It's a big reason why they moved the ball so well against, I think it was in the Rams game. They started doing that, and Philly just started eating them up, but they didn't even do that in this game. Again, the wind kind of played a factor in that. They didn't want to put the ball up a lot because of that. But yeah, I mean, they definitely need to integrate some more plays into that offense, and they need to watch the film and, quite frankly, quit doing things that just aren't effective and quit being so telegraphed. When you're in jumbo package or have Cameron Latu on the field, they ran all but one play. I mean, if all of us at home know it, so does every defense they ever face. I mean, they've watched this film far more hours than any of us ever have. I mean,
yeah.
And it's too predictable and too conservative. And for the people who say it's not sustainable, maybe, it just depends on the defense. But regardless of that, it's just made everyone unhappy. And it just hasn't been a joyous season like it should be. 8-2, there should be a lot more joy. Because this isn't like 2023, where it was a novice defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator. They got a very strong defense, which is affording them the time to right the ship on offense, and they need to take advantage of it and start doing it.
I completely agree. And I would love to see the ball leave Jalen's hands a little quicker as well, and him going through, trusting his first read, if anything. And hopefully that first read is A.J. Brown at some point.
Yeah, what did you make of them feeding him the ball with it 13 targets, and then they were acting like that's just the way it went this week? No, but it didn't go from 3 to 13 just because that's the way it went. But
I'm tired of I'm gonna say this. I'm tired of them acting like they're the smartest people in the room. Like we're not. I mean, yes, there's some dumb people out there, but not all of us are dumb. We all have, we all understand a lot of things, and one thing that I think everybody understands is common sense. And common sense says if your owner spoke to your wide receiver, I'm pretty sure your owner also spoke to the coach, to the quarterback, and wants his main guy to be involved as well, which led to the targets. But I mean, a lot of the targets, a lot of times Adrian wasn't really open, but he was still making the catches. I love that catch that he made on his freaking knees. That was freaking
It's like
amazing.
they overcorrected.
Yeah, they did too much because then I don't think did they even throw the ball to Smitty? Did he have any
A
target?
couple times he had the one catch on the sideline, but
I know John Dotson had that nice catch, but
yeah,
it's like you're doing that and then that's it. Your offense is gonna fall and die on that sword because
right.
you're not trying to find a balance with the run games. You're not trying to get Dallas Goedert involved in them. Like I hate the fact that like we all see that this offense can be so much better, but they're just not.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and that's why I don't want to say I'm like a huge AJ Brown defender, but that is kind of why I've defended him to the degree I have. I mean, if all of us are frustrated, how do you think he feels?
Mhm.
I
He
mean,
gets paid to do this.
yeah, and dedicates 6 hours a day training, working out, being away from his family. I mean, the guy's put in a lot of work for this stuff, and yeah, they need to do better. And even when he gets all the targets, people go in the locker room. How'd you feel about all the targets? Well, he's not happy about that either. I
Yeah.
mean, that he knows what this looks like and what happened, and he doesn't want targets at the detriment of the offense succeeding. That's not what he wants. He wants to enhance it. He wants to be a part of it. And it's just like that, like you said, they take a step forward and three back. It's like they finally, all right, well, let's get him the ball, and then they just make him the whole game plan. Like
Hmm.
that can't be it either. There has to be a fine balance, and again, I don't know at the end of the day who overrules who. Patullo has a lot of autonomy, but so does Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts calls the protections when he's up there. He calls, he gets three calls he can pick from the play sheet, on his wrist there when they call it in. And I think all of the great quarterbacks kind of have that, that ability to do that. And he wanted it. He wanted it on
Hmm.
him. And you know, he kind of made it sound like that it may have not been his choice to get the ball so much either. If you read his quote, where they said about getting AJ the ball so much, and he said, that's something you're gonna have to ask somebody else,
Yep.
not me. So, it just seems like sometimes when they take too much control, they mess it up, and when they don't take enough, they mess that up too. So it's just been something that's been frustrating for everyone watching it, playing, doing it. Nobody's happy about it. Everybody wants to succeed. So here's to hoping that they get it right here soon. They got, what do we got? 7 more weeks of the regular season to start getting this thing right. So,
They
and
just
they're
gotta be
lucky.
efficient.
They're
Just need
lucky
to
they got
stay
a
with
lights
it.
out defense that keeps giving them time.
Oh, very lucky.
Because this could be
Oh,
2023 without that defense.
it kind of feels like that Seahawks team where they had the Legion of Boom and Russ Wilson back there, Marshawn Lynch. Well, that didn't end well for Russell Wilson at the end of the day.
No, they got the one Super Bowl. Lost one, won one, and never been to another one.
It's on. Like Brandon Graham said, right? Heavy is the head that wears a crown.
You got that right.
So it's on Jalen to make to be the difference and to be that vocal leader finally. Cowboys Eagles 4:25 p.m. on Sunday. What's your score prediction?
Man, I went 27-24 Eagles.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a tough game. I actually picked player of the game too. I went AJ Brown. I think he's going to get 2 touchdowns in this game, not because they force feed him 20 targets, but because they force feed him good targets.
my fantasy team needs it. So
Yeah.
yes, I hear that.
So you didn't take his advice and cut him?
No, I'm in a weird league where the guys pay attention, but they don't pay attention. Like they'll pay attention on game day, but they won't pay attention to trade offers. But when AJ was going off, they were offering me all these wild things, and I just
Oh,
never
I'm
accepted
sure.
it. But I'm kind of with you on that regard. I'm going 23-17 Philly. I think the defense is good enough to kind of force Dallas to have only 10 points. 3 quarters in, and then they get that garbage time touchdown, and they think that they can catch up. But I'm hoping it's an eye-opening game on offense. I hope they find a way to be steady and balanced and efficient. I know those are high expectations, but it's this defense that has me convinced that this team is gonna, take on teams like the Cowboys and take them out because they did it to the Lions, they did it to the Packers.
Right.
Defense is damn good, and it's not a fluke at all.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, I do want to say that I appreciate you all joining us today. And now I feel like we were the appetizer to David's rest of the night for his date. So I do hope you enjoy your rest of your evening. We'll be back live next Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. on Philly Sports Network. I'm Brian Cameron alongside David Neese, and we're flipping the birds.
Flip